The Covenant of the Stars. After the dust of battle had finally settled and the tempting spoils of kings had been righteously refused, a heavy silence fell over my camp. The great victory, which was won by the powerful hand of God Most High, was now becoming a distant and fading memory. But in the quiet of the desert night, a deeper, more personal battle raged fiercely within my old patriarch's heart. I was known as Abram the Wealthy, celebrated as Abram the Victor, and honored to be called Abram the Friend of God. Yet I was also heartbreakingly known as Abram the Childless, a title that overshadowed all the others in my moments of solitude. The promises of God, as vast and sweeping as the land before me, felt hollow when there was no son to inherit them. In this very moment of my most profound vulnerability, the word of the Lord came to me in a powerful vision. It was a divine communication that decisively cut through the oppressive stillness of my overwhelming doubts and fears with absolute clarity. The voice was not a mere sound in the air, but a profound truth that resonated deep within the chambers of my soul. The Lord spoke with a gentle yet firm authority that commanded my complete and undivided attention, seeking to soothe my troubled spirit. "Do not be afraid, Abram," the voice declared with immense compassion, a promise that sought to banish all my lingering anxieties. "I am your shield, your very great reward," a declaration of his personal protection and provision for my life. These words were meant as a deep comfort, but they unintentionally opened the floodgates of my deepest, most persistent anxiety. I had walked away from the riches of Sodom, declaring my unwavering trust in God alone. But what was the ultimate reward without a future? With all the reverence due to the Almighty, I finally laid my heart completely bare before Him in my desperation. "Sovereign Lord," I pleaded, my voice heavy with the familiar ache of countless unanswered prayers, "what can you possibly give me since I remain childless? The one who will inherit my entire estate is Eliezer of Damascus, a faithful servant, but certainly not a son of my own blood. You have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir," a declaration of human logic forged in divine silence. But God's magnificent plan was never bound by the constraints of my limited human understanding or my carefully constructed logical conclusions. His divine response was both swift and absolute, completely shattering my resigned logic with its undeniable and world-altering power. "SUMATMAN.ai, no source, man be, mama not your heir," the voice declared, resonating with the authority that calms seas and creates entire worlds from nothing. The Lord's promise was specific and deeply personal, addressing the very core of my longing with a direct and powerful statement. "A son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir," the voice affirmed, leaving no room for any doubt. Then the vision inside my tent shifted, and the divine presence urged me forward with a new, unexpected command: "Go outside." I obeyed without hesitation, stepping out from the confines of my tent into the cool, crisp desert air that awaited me. The night sky was a breathtaking spectacle of unimaginable glory, a celestial canvas painted by the Creator's own hand. Far from the obscuring haze of any city, the heavens were a deep velvet black, strewn with a countless multitude of brilliant, shimmering stars. These stars seemed so close that I felt I could almost reach out and touch them, a celestial river of pure light flowing across the great dome of the world. And then the very voice of God filled the immense and profound silence of the desert with His awesome presence. "Look up at the heavens and count the stars, if indeed you can count them," He challenged me, drawing my attention to the infinite. My gaze swept across the infinite and dazzling display, knowing immediately that the task He presented was utterly impossible for any mortal. No man could ever hope to number such a magnificent and vast celestial host, for their quantity defied all human calculation. Then came the promise, a promise that would echo through eternity, the very foundation of a nation. so shall your offspring be. In that sacred moment, standing under the vast canopy of God's own magnificent handiwork, something profound and irreversible shifted deep within me. The heavy weight of my doubt, the cold logic of my barrenness, and the gnawing fear of my own mortality, it all fell away. I looked at the impossible number of stars, heard the impossible promise of God, and I simply chose to believe His word. I did not foolishly ask how this could be possible, nor did I arrogantly demand any further proof from the Almighty. I simply chose to trust the impeccable character of the one who made the incredible promise to me that night. And the scripture records the most profound transaction in history. Abram believed the Lord, and He credited it to him as righteousness. This was the very heart of the covenant, the central truth upon which everything else would be built for generations to come. My right standing with God was not earned by ritual or merit, but was a gift, imputed to me because of my faith. Having established the heir, God now confirmed the other part of His promise. I am the Lord, who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land. Now emboldened by this newfound faith, I asked for a sign, not from a place of lingering doubt, but from a deep desire to comprehend the holy reality. Sovereign Lord, how can I know that I will gain possession of it? I was humbly asking for a seal. I was asking for a tangible confirmation of this incredible and overwhelming destiny that was laid out before me. God responded to my request by commanding a solemn and ancient ceremony, a sacred ritual designed to ratify a covenant of the utmost gravity. His instructions were precise, outlining the elements needed for this profound and binding agreement that we were about to enter into. Bring me a heifer, a goat and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon, he commanded. I understood the weight of this command and did exactly as the Lord instructed, preparing the animals for the holy ritual. I took the larger animals and carefully cut them in two, arranging the halves opposite each other to create a path between the pieces of flesh. The birds, however, I didn't cut, following the sacred tradition of a blood covenant that bound participants with an unbreakable oath. As the hot desert sun beat down relentlessly upon the arid landscape, I stood a lonely and solemn vigil over the sacrifice. I was an active participant in this divine drama, guarding the holy sacrifice from any form of defilement or interference. Birds of prey, which are symbols of destruction and decay, swooped down toward the carcasses, but I drove them away with unwavering diligence. As the sun finally began to set below the distant horizon, a profound and supernatural change came over my entire being. A deep, irresistible sleep fell upon me, and with it a thick and dreadful darkness descended, unlike anything I had ever known. It was a terrifying, holy dread, a tangible weight that pressed down upon my soul, silencing all thought and filling me with awe. Then, from within that terrifying and oppressive darkness, the Lord spoke to me again, revealing the future charter of my descendants. Know for certain, God declared, His voice outlining a complex destiny of both immense suffering and ultimate salvation for my people. For 400 years, your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and they will be enslaved and mistreated there. This was a truly staggering prophecy, a future that was difficult to comprehend in that moment of divine revelation. The promised nation, as numerous as the stars, would first be forged in the unforgiving crucible of affliction and bondage. But the prophecy did not end in despair, for God continued, I will punish the nation they serve as slaves, and afterward they will come out with great possessions. There was a definite limit to their suffering and a steadfast promise of divine justice and a truly miraculous liberation for them. God's covenant included not just the future glory, but also the amazing grace to endure the coming trial and the power to overcome it. And for me, He gave a word of personal peace. You, however, will go to your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. The sun finally disappeared completely below the horizon, and the thick supernatural darkness was now absolute and all-encompassing. Then a new and awesome vision appeared before my eyes, a manifestation of the divine presence in a form I could witness, a smoking fire pot, like that of a kiln, and a blazing torch, a manifestation of pure, living flame, materialized in the dark. As I watched, breathless and completely overwhelmed by the holy sight, the smoking firepot and the flaming torch passed between the pieces of the sacrificed animals. I did not walk that path. I was merely the recipient of the promise, not an equal partner in making it. God alone, in his sovereign grace, passed through the path of death, making a unilateral oath and binding himself with an unbreakable obligation. On that day the Lord made a covenant with me, sealed not by a human handshake, but by his own presence passing through death. The fulfillment of this great covenant would depend solely upon the unwavering, immutable faithfulness of God himself, not on my own stray. And he defined the promise, giving the future nation its borders. To your descendants I give this land, from the Wadi of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates.